So after the first meeting, the concerns and issues was, getting equipment ready. I know we're still trying to figure out exactly what we're going to bring out there, but there's a lot of stuff that we can already prep and get ready for.
And there's a variety of technology solutions that we can use. In this case, we looked at both a photogrammetric solution, which is highly overlapped images, which they do matching of specific pixels as they appear in different, and then they solve multivariable equations to say where that object is in X, Y, and Z, so that we can then build a three-dimensional picture of that. The LiDAR, which actually does a more accurate job of that, uses a laser scanner and shooting anywhere between 100 and 300,000 points or shots per second, and it measures time of flight down to there. So it has a very accurate Z value, height of that object. However, it's a much heavier sensor, and so there's additional considerations, as well as it's also a lot more expensive.
Also, flight planning. We've got the area of interest in a KML, and we put that into our flight planning software. Then we're able to build a flight based on what they gave us, and it looks like it's going to be a few flights, not a huge area, but get an idea of how long it'll actually take once we get out there. When flying a drone, you'll always have to maintain visual line of sight. Let's say you're flying over that cliff, and it's just a little past where you can see, or a lot past. You don't want to crash up there on a cliff. Even if there's no one around, that's an expensive crash.
You haven't been in this industry long enough if you haven't lost an aircraft. The good thing about them being unmanned is it's just the aircraft, and they're easily replaceable. Humans are not, so that's why we do a lot of what we do. But it has its own inherent risks. So the biggest thing that we could possibly lose is an aircraft and the sensor. The crews will take that into account when they're doing their planning, because obviously we have some risks that we have to assume, but we also take our experience and weigh that in on those risks, and we're able to mitigate most of those risks very effectively.
This particular challenge we have done before. We've performed in very, very similar environments, and I feel like we are pretty prepared for, what this is going to bring.
Hey guys. Ooh. All right. Just got some news. Coming out of the meeting, first things I immediately jumped to are safety and the terrain that the project is taking place within. Mainly safety because it is a previous fire burn area and we need to make sure that the airspace is clear. The fact that there's also an interstate running below means we've got a lot of different factors involved. And in order to complete the project successfully, we need to make sure that we get everything done right the first time. So that means testing a lot of our equipment, make sure it's safe to go, as well as doing a lot of pre-planning before we even head out to make sure that we're going to have a successful operation. I think the best equipment to be used for this specific mission would be a quad or hexcopter over a fixed wing aircraft, just because of the elevation changes. Anytime you're climbing up steep terrain, you want to have something that's a little bit more agile and can climb distances a little bit quicker. And then we always try to use as high quality camera equipment as we can, especially for photogrammetry. Say for instance, like the Sony RX1R2, which has a 42 megapixel, 35 millimeter sensor on board. That larger sensor allows us to get a higher point cloud data. And from that, we can interpret that and process it to be more accurate for the client.
In addition, I think our team is very well skilled in this, but there's operational constraints. When you're operating in a canyon environment, you have unstable and inconsistent wind patterns. And though the aircraft we fly have reasonable flight envelopes and characteristics, there's always unknown factors.
This last meeting, the two teams came in with their respective solutions, one photogrammetric, one LiDAR. The LiDAR is a great solution. It's not always the best job. It's kind of like going to a restaurant and you're like, I need the most expensive thing on the menu. Will it fill them up? Yep, but there's a better option.
Well, we had some time to look at the AOI.
Okay.
Went over some consideration.
I'm not surprised in the strategies that are pitched. They're well within our wheelhouse.
So I'm not as concerned about the time frame of getting that back in. I think it's more operational exposure and making sure we hit the quality specifications.